Hello everyone and welcome to the second video of my campaign week. I'm recording this on Tuesday evening, so we've already started to have some of the Q&A come in and many of the questions have anticipated actually what this video is about, which is some late night reflections on last year with a particular focus on what I would do differently with the benefit of hindsight, and therefore if I'm re-elected for a second year, what I will be doing differently going forwards. So there's always a lot of smaller individual things that you think, oh, if I'd just done that a little bit differently. Of course there are. What I wanted to do in this video though was just really focus on three broad areas where looking back, I think I should have played it a bit differently. The first one is in the lateness of the team selection, and even though I thought I was doing something clever, it's maybe unnecessary. The second was in some elements of the virtual Grand Tour, and how that caught me flat-footed in a few places. And then the final one was maybe a bit too much concern around fatigue in the squad, particularly over the summer. Maybe I should have done something there instead of intentionally resting everyone so they didn't get burned out before the main event. So yeah, some ramblings from me over the next 10 minutes or so reflecting on that. So yeah, let's get started with the lateness of the team selection. So the selection of Team England this year was quite different to previous years, not just because I decided that I wanted to have a 24-person squad to begin with for sort of some team bonding and getting to know some people a bit better, but also the way that the 12 wasn't split until very late in the year. In previous years, the 8 and 4 have been basically decided kind of right at the beginning. And so, you know, that does provide a lot of clarity to people in terms of where they are, but it doesn't necessarily provide the most information. And I think in most years you don't really need that sort of information, but I think a few of us felt that the rule set was particularly wild this year, that there was going to be a lot of volatility. There's obviously a lot of noise on the internet around what that was going to look like. Some factions that were, you know, in normal years on auto take, Dark Elves Lizards being sort of the prime two examples, were maybe not in the top 8 or only just in the top 8. And I also felt that based on some of the things that happened last year where the team was selected and then the rosters were assigned quite late on, we had some people playing with a great deal of inexperience, or there was some frustrations around the rosters that people were being asked to play, which they didn't feel comfortable with and they would prefer other ones. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the learnings from how things didn't maybe go quite so well, plus some unsurety around what the meta might be. And what that led to was a real desire to collect as much information as possible. We had the Xmas Bash, we had a lot of theory crafting on Discord in the Private Squad England channels. And then obviously when we launched the Virtual Grand Tour, one of the main focuses of that was people trying out different rosters, different factions, and just kind of feeding back what they felt worked and what didn't. And it was interesting, even as late as the home nations, people were coming up to me and saying, oh, I actually sort of, you know, Chaos are quite good, maybe we should pick Chaos. And so whilst I think that was sort of, there was a rationality to it, I think what I forgot was the human element and the pressure that it put on people with that late selection. I think it made it very difficult all round. I don't think it was necessarily wrong to pick a home nations and then potentially change it for the full thing. But it did definitely unsettle a lot of people. And, you know, people have come to me sort of on the Q&A today, even sort of saying that, you know, how they felt in limbo. And so, yeah, I think those are very valid comments, complaints even. I also, there was an extra week's delay. So when I communicated to people at the home nations, I said I would make the final selection within 2 weeks. thinking I might only need one. So sometimes it's better if it comes a little bit earlier than people are expecting. So they set their mind ahead, they don't worry. But then not only did I use up all of those 2 weeks, I actually needed an extra week because there were two selections in particular that was such a knife-edge decision. I was really, really finding it difficult to come to a firm conclusion. So many times I said, right, I've made my decision, I'll sleep on it. And then in the morning I felt a bit differently. So this year, definitely going to change things up, going to pick earlier. I've made a commitment that it would definitely be by April. We're actually planning that maybe it's a bit sooner than that. Although, if anything, this year's even weirder than last year because last year was a volatile rule set. This year's a completely new game. But the approach is going to be very different this year in terms of how I'm going to select the squad. I'm not going to look for those person team combinations because we just don't know what those combinations will be, and there's no way that we can work out in time to make those selections. So the selection of the team is going to be different. It's going to be based on teamwork, raw talent, and activity. And we're going to have to just figure out some of the roster selections as we go, which I think is perfectly fine. I think everyone's going to be in the same boat, so I don't think we're at a disadvantage there. And I also think in hindsight, actually, we called the meta quite early on, so we shouldn't maybe have worried so much. I think Wood Elves was maybe the only team that kind of wasn't in the most picked teams. I think we had the top 7, and then Wood Elves were like 11th or something like that, which I think they were much better than that. So yeah, that's the main thing. That this year the team will be selected much earlier, and there will also be a calendar being produced right at the beginning of the process showing everyone what the whole year looks like well in advance, so that everyone has that clarity. They don't feel like they're in limbo. When I select the 12, I'm going to select the 8 and the 4 at the same time, so there's not going to be a 12 and then a split later. It will be, here's the 8 for the Euro Bowl, here's the 4 for the European. They'll be declared all at the same time. So yeah, benefit of hindsight. Hopefully this will be a lot easier on people. So yeah, good reflection, I think. So the next thing to talk about is the virtual Grand Tour. Overall, I thought this was a good idea. I really liked that it gave us 2 key benefits, which was the ability to practice some slightly different rosters, to try out some different skill selections, and just give people a bit more familiarity within a semi-serious environment. But yeah, one of the main objectives, of course, was to increase the connection between Team England and the rest of the community. I'm lucky to have played for sort of long enough that I know a lot of the guys from the different regions around the UK. And I've always maintained that you make some of your best friends in this community by playing against them. And so anything that I could do to increase the networking, the relationship building, the camaraderie, the joint ventures, the shared space, all those buzzwords, was definitely a good thing. I think where we got really caught out is how people would latch on to what we were doing to generate content for themselves. Overall, this was had the potential to be a very positive thing. It was great that people were interested. Getting engagement in the things that you're doing is one of the hardest things that you can actually try to achieve. You think how hard people work to try and get people to sort of follow them. So the fact that we had some people who were very interested in covering what we were doing was really, really good. I think, though, that because we didn't properly communicate the intention of what we're doing and the style of how we were doing it, that they got the wrong impression. And there was very much a sense of, oh, I can't believe what's going on here. This is supposed to be Team England. Why are they playing so badly, etc., etc. Now, I do think a lot of it was exaggerated. I do think that sometimes there were maybe something might be a bit more accurate tactically, but maybe not strategically. But mainly the issue was the approach and the style of some of that online coverage was extremely negative. It definitely would have breached, if it had been on our Discord, it would have breached the rules that we had there around people being kind and respectful at all times. Now, as soon as I realized it was a problem, I kind of jumped on the case. I had conversations with the people that were streaming to say, look, tone it down. This is not acceptable, especially to the people that are playing against us who, don't take the game necessarily as seriously or don't want to play in that style. Maybe they take it very seriously, but they just like to play the crazy cinematic way because that's what they enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that. Blood Bowl is a game for lots of people to engage with in lots of different ways. But because there was a perspective that this was supposed to be like super serious at all times, there were definitely some very derogatory comments made, and it had an impact on the team as well. Some people within Team England wanted to not play every round. They needed a bit of a break because of the negativity. And especially we had people from the other teams coming to us and saying, look, I've seen what's gone on before. I just don't want anything to do with this. Why would I do it? So yeah, in hindsight, we were very poor at anticipating what the coverage might be like. And so as a result of that, we were on the back foot the whole time. And whilst we did take some steps to mitigate those issues, we never really got hold of it the way that we would want to. That's why kind of towards the end of the tour, it kind of sort of faded away because everyone was kind of really tired of the whole process by that point. And I didn't want to push people beyond their limit. So I am looking to do it again this coming year, but we're going to take a very different approach. We're going to contact we're going to create kind of a media program network, people that are interested in streaming or doing podcasts, to come and invite them into what we're doing to create a values document between us about how we're going to approach the coverage that everyone can sign up to. Obviously, you can't stop people from going on to Fumble and finding an old game or something like that, right? But what we're hoping is that if we have a huge wealth of people who really understand and buy into what we're trying to do and is very supportive, then we can sort of have so many positive voices that the one or two people that might want to be negative for whatever reason on the outside maybe don't get quite the attention because there's lots of other choices of people to go and consume that content. So yeah, some very good Q&A questions on that today. So yeah, Virtual Grand Tour, we definitely want to do it again. In hindsight, we should have anticipated a bit more, prepared a bit better, taken control of it from the beginning. Once we're on the back foot, we weren't able to catch up. And so it's important that this year we do things right straight from the beginning. The final section to talk about was my concerns around the fatigue in the squads over the summer. We had just come off the back of the Virtual Grand Tour where there was a fair bit of negativity. And then obviously we'd also had the Home Nations and then the pick afterwards. And I think because that pick was quite late, maybe some people were feeling a bit kind of tired from that. So, even the people that would have been selected in the 8, if they were thinking that they might be in the 4, just a lot of kind of maybe energy sapping nerves in advance. And as a consequence of those two things put together, I decided to make a decision to just have a bit of a quieter summer. Originally in my plans, I was going to do something over the summer, have sort of a summer event as well. But I decided we'd probably heard a bit too much from me at that point. And, I had a few conversations with some people, clearly some people did always want to do more. For some people, there's never too much Blood Bowl, but for other people, I think it was better to let them rest. I think if I'd asked them to do something, they would have done it, but it would have been a bit begrudging maybe. And what I didn't want to do was lose kind of sharpness before the main event. And so, yeah, my motivation was very much, let's just take things a bit easier over the summer. People can always, they're still doing tournaments, they're still playing regularly. Enjoy being a member of the Team England while playing in those events, not necessarily having to do something more formal as a squad. And we'd spent some extra time together as well at various tournaments, and also in the practice weekend. So yeah, in hindsight, I was probably a bit too hands off over the summer. I probably should have taken an approach of, well, whilst we're not doing anything official, me being hands off doesn't necessarily mean me being quiet. So I was still having lots of conversations, but those conversations were mainly with people that were coming to me. I was kind of looking after the ones that were having conversations with me. For everyone else, I was taking sort of no news as good news. Should definitely have checked in more with some people, find out how they were doing. Obviously it is coming out that some of the guys in the squads were not feeling quite so happy over the summer. Some contacted me and some didn't, for whatever reason. And then, of course, I think what it led to was maybe a feeling that I was maybe a bit too absent over that time period, from some people. I imagine not for some other people who I was still talking to quite a lot. But one of the important things here is you don't leave individuals behind. It's no good if I'm doing all the work in aggregate, if there are individuals within the group that are not feeling happy. So I think definitely important for me to make sure that even when I'm a bit more hands off, I'm still just sort of regularly checking in with people to see how they're feeling. So that's the summary. Yeah, that's my main reflection point. But do check out the Q&A section. I've got some written some slightly different things for slightly different questions, which might go into detail in a few other places. And also ask your questions as well. So just because I haven't talked about it here doesn't mean I'm not going to. Please do get those Q&A sessions in. And then the next 2 days are going to be exciting because we've got my main plans for the future, as a kind of a bullet point list coming out tomorrow. And then on Thursday, there's going to be another video like this, a longer one where I go through those bullet points in more detail, explain my thoughts, try and hope to build a bit of excitement for the year ahead, if I am re-elected, which I really hope I am. So thank you, everyone, and speak soon.